long-term trauma. And Jesus said, guess what? I've come to set you free. The worst cases of trauma I've already mentioned this, about those in spiritual covering and protection. I had a mother in Kansas City. I went through a phase, I told some of the school this earlier, I went through a phase probably of 6 months where at different times I would literally walk through a room or be in a room and people would break down in tears. It got a real issue. Talk about not wanting to leave home. I mean, and she was one of these ladies. I was stood like here talking to somebody, and then over like where Jenny sat through the doors, this mother was stood. And I'm having a totally unrelated conversation, but I feel a pull on my spirit. And I turn around and she's just gone out, but broken, just totally broke down in tears. And it turns out her daughter was abused in a church, but mum is carrying the trauma of watching her whole daughter's life get destroyed and torn apart and everything else. And she's carrying it. So it's not just the person, we need to be aware it impacts the wider family as well. It can be impacted through exposure. So the soldiers uncovering the atrocities of the prisoners of war. Major traumatized. Emergency workers, 9/11, 999 people turning up on the scenes of horrific crashes. The guys, I mean, Iran right now with that Tupolev 154 crash that happened a couple of days ago. The BBC, for once, actually put it right. And they said, you know, they've been collecting body parts. I mean, the trauma of having to do that. You've seen aid workers entering refugee camps, people caught in terrorist attacks. Those right now, investigating child pornography, surfing websites, checking out for paedophiles, all of this stuff is just major trauma. The lifespan of an officer doing that role is really short. Police officers doing it because of all the trauma it causes. I mean, I had one, I told you I missed 9/11. We had a friend one day round from America, and this is like 2-3 years later, something like that. And we're just having a chat, having a great day, and she says, hey, we're talking about 9/11, did you know if you fold a $20 bill in a certain way, on one side you get the Twin Towers falling, and on the other side you've got the Pentagon going up in smoke? And I looked at her and said, are you serious? She said, oh yeah. And I'm going to and from the States all the time, so I've always got US dollars. So I gave her one. And she folded it, and she gave it to me. Now I thought I was long over all this, okay? Years have gone by. And I pick up this $20 bill. And I looked at one side, and the Twin Tower, it's true, the Twin Towers were coming down. On the other side, there's the Pentagon going up. I screwed it up, and I threw it across the room at her and stormed out. Jacqueline's eyes are on stalk. My friend's like, what on earth did I do? And I went upstairs and said, God, you and I need to talk. I'm obviously not quite over this. Because although I cancelled, I was at home. I watched the second plane go in on the TV live. I had a friend, a team member, who worked for me, who we had to put into professional counselling because she should have been there too. I almost lost the whole team that I was working with. It was only by the grace of God they survived. And no contact for a week with them. You won't want to know how, but we managed to get hold of the NASA satellites over New York. I worked in IT, remember? We managed to get hold of the NASA satellite, and we were able to zoom right down, long before Google Maps. We literally zoomed right down and watched it live. We picked out where their building was. We saw it was standing. Said, thank you, Lord, they're okay. We had to wait a week. All of that was trauma. And so I came back, I went again, gave my friend a hug, said, sorry, it was just a whole lot of pain came out, and trauma came back up that I just needed to go and spend time with God and deal with. And then we had a great day again. but I've never wanted to fold the $20 bill. You know, like that again. And so through exposure and that. Now in your notes I've given you some steps there. There's 2, 4, 6 of these. These can be warning signs. These are just keys, okay? Warning signs that somebody might be dealing with shock and trauma. Number 1, agitated and irritable. It may be that you're just being a total pain that day. Irritable and agitated. I mean, you may be stood on their foot. It may be that the stove's burnt, or the TV's blown, or the microwave's packed up. And I mean, they could just be having a bad day. But if it's their normal attitude, you know, Mr. Irritable and Mrs. Agitated all the time, it may be that there's trauma there, okay? This was me after bankruptcy. Number 2, easily stressed by routine events. Easily stressed by routine events. For me, the end of watching everything fall apart and me standing before the judge and everything else, and me having this downward spiral after the bankruptcy, apparently I have no memory of this. I have memory of it happening, but I don't have any memory of what was going on. Apparently it was taking me 5 minutes to dry one knife after it had been washed. Easily stressed by routine events. Till in the end they told me to go and sit down. I was useless, which is not what I really needed to hear. And I'm like, what did I do? But apparently that's what was going on. Number 3, snappy and angry with people or yourself. Snappy, you know, snappy and angry with people or yourself. Now, if people are snappy with you, it might be because you're being irritating. Alright? Might be because you're stood on their foot. So I'm making light of it because it's not every person who's snappy has actually got trauma. It could be because you need to put some deodorant on or have a shower. You know, mum and dads get snappy with kids because they need to do their homework. You know, it's not trauma. Well, it might be trauma to do your homework, but that's not why they're snappy and angry. All right. Number 4. Physical symptoms not healing. Physical symptoms not healing. Number 5. Believes they should be coping better. That is everywhere. They believe they should be coping better. Especially in the Singaporean performance mentality. I should be doing better. You know, it's like, I should be over this by now. I should be. Who says? Show me the rule book. Believes they should be coping better. Number 5, 6, 2, 4, 6, the last one, yeah. Tears, crying, or sobbing. Tears, so they weep, they cry, they sob, sometimes uncontrollably. It's just, they just cry really easily. Now, they could be emotional, they could have a very sensitive spirit. For me, I've had to learn that often when I lay hands on people, I pick up everything you're feeling. It's just the way God's given me that discernment. I sometimes wish it didn't happen, because it's really tiring, but that's how it works. So if you're feeling grief, I'm feeling grief. If you've got, that's how come I know when the Spirit's moving, and what He's dealing with, and what's going on inside. So I may keep saying the same word, but I know what's happening. But people just seem to weep really easily. Now, the earlier